I'm very excited. I ordered this exactly 1 month ago from Canada, from acarguysgarage.com. The reason why it took so long to show up is that this is a custom milled aluminum reverse lockout ring for the 2011 to 2016 Scion tC. No one else makes them except for ACGG, and the reason for that is that the reverse lockout ring is part of the reverse lockout mechanism. You can't separate it like you can on, say, an FRS or BRZ. You actually have to physically cut the top half off and then install this new piece over top of the bottom part. So let's take a look and see what it looks like. All right, so we've got a thank you card with some info on the back, business card, got a bracelet here, a note from Zenon. Derek, thanks so much for the purchase and support. I really hope that you enjoyed this lockout. Any questions, please let me know. Oh, thank you, man. I've got a decal, a hex key for installation, and oh, here it is. Oh, that looks nice. So this is the part that's going to go up into the bottom of the shift knob, and the shift boot's going to sit in this notch here, and then this sits over top of the bottom half of the reverse lockout mechanism and then is held in place with these two grub screws. So I worked with him back and forth on Facebook Messenger, and when he did the initial cut, he sent me a photo. And then I drew lines where I wanted him to mill away extra material and sent it back and forth, and he got it to be the shape that I wanted it to be. I was originally going to have him do gloss red, but he convinced me to go with cherry red, and I'm glad he did. This is going to look perfect with the new Raceseng shift knob that I have. Another reason why it took a little bit longer to show up is that when he initially powder coated it, it wasn't quite even on one side, so he actually had to sandblast all the powder coating off and start over. So he definitely makes sure that when he ships you out something that it's going to be quality. All right, let's get this installed on the car. All right, so I've taken the shift boot off. If you don't know how to do this step, you can watch my Redline Goods leather shift boot and e-brake boot installation review video to see how to get to this part. Also, if you have the shift knobs from Raceseng installed like I do, you will need to remove the adapter to get this off. All right, so now that this is out, you can see here's the reverse lockout, and if we look underneath, this is the rest of the reverse lockout mechanism, and this is the part that we have to cut off from the top and then attach the new one to. I flipped my aftermarket boot inside out and I was able to pull out the reverse lockout easily. Again, if you don't know how to get to this part, watch the Redline Goods shift boot and e-brake boot video. But the trick is we're going to cut it here, just underneath, discard the top half, or save it if you want, and then take the new piece here, and it's going to slide over top of the bottom. You can see it's larger, and then it'll be secured with the two grub screws. But we won't secure it in place until we put it back in the car, because we may have to make adjustments so that there's enough clearance for the reverse lockout to go up into the shift knob. All right, to the basement. It's actually pretty easy to cut through this with the hacksaw. Just take your time, and voila. You should end up with two pieces just like this when you're done. So we're not going to keep this part, but this is the piece that we need to save. Before I go back out to the car, I've installed the new reverse lockout on the shift boot. Just slide it in from underneath and then pull it down until it sits right there. It was a little snug for me, but it did fit. All right, let's go out to the car now. Before I slide this down into here, let me show you how the reverse lockout works. So it's actually going to sit facing this direction like here, and when you try to go into reverse, that stops it until it gets lifted up and then it goes past. Alright, so now make sure that your grub screws are loosened enough, because mine weren't when I went to go do a test fit. I scratched it up, but it doesn't matter. But make sure they're loosened all the way so that they're not protruding at all, and then slide this down into place. I'm going to tell you right now, it will be a tight fit that's pretty precise. It doesn't really matter which side you have the grub screws facing, but I like doing them facing left and right because it'll be easier to tighten. So, alright, so this is now in place. And now, because I have the Raceseng shift knob, I'm going to have to reinstall this adapter on here. If you don't have this, then just screw the shift knob on. Don't worry about putting the spring there, because we just want to do a quick test fit. And then basically what happens is once you have your knob back on, you're going to make sure that it's sitting at the right height so that you can still bring the car up into reverse. So this is too high. I'm going to have to push this down further over top of the bottom part here. And then once I can lift this up and it lets me go in the reverse, I can tighten down those 2 grub screws. It only took one test fit for me to discover that I just need to push this all the way down to the bottom and then tighten down these 2 screws for this to work. Don't over tighten the screws. You just need to tighten them so they're a little bit snug. This thing is honestly not going to move. And if you over tighten it, you're going to compress the plastic a little bit and it's going to squeeze against the metal here and it might make it harder for it to move up and down. Before I do the final assembly, I went ahead and put a piece of electrical tape here per Zenon's advice to prevent any rattling for the top of the reverse lockout against the shaft here. And I didn't do any overlap on the tape. I used a blade to trim it. I found that if I overlapped the tape at all, it was a little bit harder to actually get the reverse lockout to slide over top. I'm also going to apply some multi-purpose grease to the shaft to replace all the grease that got wiped off during the process of installing my shift boot before and the reverse lockout ring. Now that everything's all adjusted correctly, time to reassemble. The only difference when you reassemble is that you do not need to reuse this little disc here. Zenon designed it so that you can forego that disc. Just use the spring and then screw the knob over top of it. Or in my case, because of the Raceseng shift knob, install your adapter. Now, unfortunately, because there is no plastic ring here to stop the spring movement, it goes up around the adapter, but I didn't have any problem screwing the knob down. The knob just pushed the spring out of the way. But if this is a problem for you, I will include a link in the video description below to this 3D print that you can do to fix this problem. If you're going to use my plastic spring stop, make sure the side that has the wider opening is facing down because it's going to sit on top of this perch. Here's what it looks like when it's installed. The adapter is able to screw all the way down the way it was before. It's not being lifted up at all from having this sitting here. Also, you can see it's got just enough clearance for the reverse lockout. If for some reason it's rubbing when you do that, just give it a quick sand around the outside edge. But this will definitely keep the spring from riding up onto the adapter. I'm sure you could probably apply this to other aftermarket knobs if you're having the same issue. Here's what it looks like installed. It looks great with the new shift knob. I'm really glad that I went with the cherry red finish per Zenon's recommendations. This was completely worth it. As you can see, it goes in the reverse without any problems, and also into the various gears without making any noise thanks to the electrical tape. I've actually had this on here for a couple of days. No problems whatsoever. So big thumbs up. It was a little scary to cut the factory reverse lockout, but honestly, that really wasn't that much of an issue once I actually committed to doing it. I'll put a link, of course, to the reverse lockout in the video description below, as well as a link to the various colors that you can get done, as well as the link to the general Scion tC parts that he makes, because he does make shift knobs, of course, that fit the tC specifically, as well as other things like a beauty ring that goes here. I know he makes a replacement hazard button, and a replacement e-brake handle. Alright, I hope this helps you out if you're thinking about getting a reverse lockout ring for your 2011 to 2016 Scion tC. Thanks for watching.